A small dinner here or there for our volunteers is wrong. Like I've said before, I don't want to be right.
iNews Source investigates. Was money donated to a Valley Center nonprofit used for personal gain?
Couldn't afford to live there. The cost of living was high, taxes were high, the government wasn't serving us, and we felt that we needed to find somewhere where we can better provide for our family.
In California, dreaming isn't what it used to be. We take a look at the shrinking middle class in the Golden State.
All eyes are on the Aztecs as they play in the NCAA tournament. What this means for San Diego, I'll have all the details coming up. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. There's a lot of excitement around San Diego as Viejas Arena gets ready to host 6 March Madness games this weekend, while the Aztecs take on Houston in Wichita. KPBS reporter Jade Hyman joins us from a watch party where fans are cheering on SDSU. Hi, Jade.
Hi, Ebony. Yeah, so I'm at Woodstock Pizza near SDSU's campus. A lot of fans in here watching the game. Many of them didn't think the Aztecs would make it early in the season, but now there they are on the big screen, and San Diego is in the sports spotlight. If you've been around campus, you know March Madness is here. 6 games are tipping off at Viejas Arena over the next few days.
One of the fabrics of American sports is March Madness. It is so cool.
Lee Hacksaw Hamilton is considered the voice of sports in San Diego. He says hosting some of the NCAA tournament games is not only good for San Diego State University, but good for the city.
It's like a Chamber of Commerce postcard for America about how beautiful San Diego is. My only disappointment is the Aztecs don't play here. They are playing the University of Houston in Wichita.
Still, fans who never saw this coming are cheering the team on from San Diego. The team was 5-7 in the conference at midseason, losing home games. After a turnaround at the right time, winning the games that mattered most, the 11th seed Aztecs made it to the tournament.
Look what they've become. It's an annual rite of spring on Montezuma Mesa for the Aztecs to be in the NCAA tournament, and they've rallied back. And they finished on a big upbeat because they beat everybody that was a big name in their own conference to qualify to go play at this hour in Wichita against the University of Houston.
No one would have thought we would be here 9 games ago, but it started with that first win over Wyoming, and ever since our confidence has grown, we bonded together, and we're playing our best basketball at the right time. So it's my last year, so it's just give it whatever you got, and I'm also excited and blessed to be in this position.
And Coach Brian Dutcher said the Aztecs were the best team in the conference. Easy to say, hard to prove, but tonight the Aztecs are on the court showing receipts. Jade Hyman, KPBS News.
Thanks, Jade. Recently obtained documents show a Valley Center nonprofit already embroiled in allegations of fraud and animal abuse spent thousands of donor dollars on personal items. iNews Source reporter Brad Racino has an update on the problems at HiCaliber Horse Rescue.
HiCaliber's founder, Michelle Natilla, has cultivated a huge following through social media and raises money to buy and rehabilitate distressed horses. Yet Natilla's critics allege she's using the nonprofit's funds for personal gain. iNews Source obtained some of HiCaliber's PayPal transactions from San Diego County under a Public Records Act request. In total, the data show Natilla spent thousands of donor dollars intended for rescuing and rehabilitating horses on late-night fast food and bar tabs, mobile phone spy technology, Weight Watchers, and other purchases. This matters because charities like HiCaliber must legally use all of their funds for charitable purposes. Natilla would not talk to us for this story, but she did appear on a Facebook Live video Thursday afternoon to respond.
A small dinner here or there for our volunteers is wrong. Like I've said before, I don't want to be right.
She said the spyware was installed on her own computer in order to catch a board member stealing documents. that she mistakenly used the company card for Weight Watchers payments but reimbursed the organization afterward, and that restaurant charges were for taking out volunteers for appreciation. Natilla added that the paper trail is solid and explains the reimbursements. However, iNewsSource talked with 3 former HiCaliber board members. All were on the board at the time of these expenses, and all said they never saw any financials during their tenure. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego's water department is changing how it does things after reports that hundreds of customers were overcharged, some of them by thousands of dollars. Customers can avoid overcharges by double-checking their own water meters, which KPBS reporter Claire Trageser says is a simple process.
Well, we're just going to go ahead and walk down the street, and we're going to capture visual reads on our water meter.
Stephen Broyles is a field representative for the city of San Diego. He spends his days reading water meters by the hundreds. So he makes the process look really easy. He uses a metal pole to pop open the concrete cover to get at the water meter below. To do it on your own,
they could just grab a little stick or something and probably just open this lid right here. They could probably use their finger, but you know, there could be spiders or something in there. You want to be careful, and then just lift it off like that. You always want to watch for insects.
Then you open the cover on the water meter and view the numbers.
If you're looking at the meter, you would start from your left-hand side, and you would start with the 3, 4, 3, 6, and that would be your read.
Those 4 numbers show your water use in 100 cubic feet. Each 100 cubic foot is 748 gallons of water. The black numbers on the right aren't part of the read. They're just counters to show your water usage increasing. Broyles enters the numbers on his handheld device, which is supposed to send the correct information to the city's water department. You can compare the number on your water meter with your water bill under current read. If your meter was just checked, it should be the same. Broyles and other field representatives used to move from house to house, quickly reading water meters and moving on. Now they are passing out door hangers to let people know their meter has been reviewed, which involves a lot more customer service.
Do you live here, ma'am? Yeah. Would you like me to leave this door hanger with you? This is just to reassure you that we did get a visual read on your meter today. Okay. And that we were here.
When do they come around and read ours?
Every 60 days. Every 2 months.
I have never seen one person come around.
An audit of the water department, which could uncover more billing errors, is expected to be released in June. Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
If you have questions about your bill, contact the city at 619-515-3500 or customer care at sandiego.gov. The American Civil Liberties Union is suing the Trump administration over immigration. It wants to stop the government from detaining immigrants who have a solid case for seeking asylum. The ACLU says the administration is violating federal law and its own policies by keeping asylum seekers in jail for months while they await hearings before immigration judges.
There has been a downward trend overall since the Trump administration came into office. And that's a real departure from the policy of the prior administration that instituted what's called the parole directive, recognizing that if you're an asylum seeker and you pass that screening, in general, we shouldn't be putting you behind bars, but allowing you to fight your asylum case from the community.
AP reports ICE officials have yet to respond to email requests for comment. A measure that would ban the sale of short-term health insurance plans in California has passed its first hurdle in the state Senate. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg explains critics say short-term policies are a bad deal for consumers.
Short-term plans don't have to offer the same array of benefits as Affordable Care Act policies, and they can exclude people with pre-existing conditions. The Trump administration says they're a viable and cheaper alternative to Obamacare plans. Anthony Wright directs the nonprofit Health Access California. He says short-term plans undermine the Affordable Care Act's consumer safeguards.
Whether it's about no denials for pre-existing conditions, essential health benefits, no annual or lifetime limits, these short-term or junk plans don't have to abide by any of those consumer protections.
Wright says by siphoning off younger, healthier people, short-term plans would destabilize California's insurance market. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
California prides itself on having the world's sixth largest economy, with a nearly $3 trillion economy. But that impressive number disguises an economic fault line: the decline of California's middle class. As part of our statewide collaboration looking at the California dream, KPBS's Amitha Sharma reports.
There is probably no single area holding so much of charm and beauty and the good things of life as Southern California.
That 1953 travel film clip underscored the state's allure, one that Chapman University presidential fellow Joel Kotkin remembers well.
Well, the California dream of that era was that you could come here, you could build your career, you could raise a family, you could buy a nice house with a pool, and actually do better than where you were before.
But today, access to the dream is slipping away. The numbers help tell the story. California has lost 500,000 more residents than have come into the state, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's annual population estimates program. High housing costs are driving people out. Kotkin says families used to pay 3 times their income for a home. Now, that figure has jumped to as high as 10 times.
California basically opened the doors and kicked my family out.
Kelly Rudiger and her family left California for Texas 1 year ago.
We couldn't afford to live there. The cost of living was high, taxes were high, the government wasn't serving us, and we felt that we needed to find somewhere where we can better provide for our family.
Kotkin says the fact that people like Rudiger, a realtor, and her IT manager husband are moving out of the state is alarming.
But when you look at the data, actually who's leaving the most are young families, people 35 up to their early 50s, very often with children, but certainly making a very middle class living between, let's say, $100,000, $200,000.
The Public Policy Institute of California classifies the middle income range between almost $50,000 and $174,000. And since 1970, California's share of the middle class fell from 60% to just over 50%.
Even though, as a whole, our economy is successful in terms of what it's producing and the amount of wealth and value that it's producing, we're not seeing that translate into incomes that really support families here in San Diego and across California.
Brownell says a thriving middle class is oxygen for the economy.
When people have stable middle-class incomes, it means that they've got money in their pocket to consume all kinds of goods.
Kotkin says California's middle class started to dwindle when the Cold War thawed in the 1990s, devastating the state's aerospace industry. He says real estate and construction jobs followed. More recently, jobs in the business sector have taken a hit.
Toyota, Nissan, Fluor, Occidental Petroleum, these are companies that have employed large numbers of people for a long period of time here in Southern California and now are leaving.
Brownell says the state has not done well when it comes to replacing those middle-class jobs that came along with these companies. Instead, California is creating highly skilled, high-paying tech jobs in Silicon Valley and in the biotech industry in San Diego. But these industries tend to create a demand for low-paying service jobs like gardeners, dry cleaners, and nannies. Even people working in higher-paying positions are struggling to survive. Sharon Mintz runs a floral arrangement business. She says she offers free meals to her employees and has increased their pay from $15 to $20 an hour over the past few years, but still cannot hold on to them.
It works, and then the rent goes up, and then we offer a little more, and then groceries go up. It feels like we're always trying to catch up with the reality of what they're dealing with in a day-to-day situation.
Kotkin says California is headed away from the enchantment of the 1950s toward a more primitive time.
Today, we have a society which over time is becoming more and more feudal, with very rich, very successful, some of the richest people in the history of the world at the very top, and then a diminishing middle class. And what's most frightening is what's happening to young people. You have young people, some of them with college educations, working at Uber, working at Starbucks, essentially barely making it.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
This story is part of our statewide California Dream collaboration. You'll find more stories at kpbs.org/dream. With sun peeking out at times, it was windy and cold in Oceanside this morning. Around the county, another round of rain is expected. Justin Povic has tonight's forecast.
Let's look ahead, and we're kind of in a bit of a lull precipitation-wise. A little break going on, but the showers come back into play in the days to come for Friday. And also to kick off the weekend, we're going to be talking about some cooler temperatures, meaning some lower snow levels this next go-around. And then we're going to dry things out as we venture into Sunday. About a tenth of an inch of precipitation. Again, for San Diego, some higher amounts off to the east toward the higher foothills. Borrego Springs looking at, again, some precipitation more recently. But notice how everything continues to wind down as the first wave of moisture continues to slide its way off to the east. Let's span on out here and notice still over the Sierra Nevada, we're talking about heavy snow, I-80 feet of snow up there toward Truckee and especially Donner's Pass, Donner's Summit. 53, cloudy back up for tonight. Again, in the metro, we're talking about the mid-50s out there. Like I said, a couple of degrees below normal here as we go for highs the next couple of days. Notice, again, Poway down to 46 late night, Ramona 41, Oceanside down to 47, Chula Vista down to 51 degrees, Mount Laguna 33. It's going to be some snow coming into play for Mount Laguna heading into this weekend. Tomorrow, notice the showers coming back into play, not overly heavy as we see this next system slide its way in, but precipitation amounts will be a little bit higher. I think there's that chance, again, for San Diego, we could see over a tenth of an inch of precipitation, perhaps a little closer to 2/10 of an inch, higher amounts eastern foothills, and some snow as well. Like I said, snow levels lower this next go around, perhaps getting down toward 4,000 feet. Higher amounts of snow, though, still going to be off to the north, but still impactful here as we talk about the next couple of days. Here's your, again, coast forecast. Notice the rain lingering into the start of the weekend. After that, we're dry, we're sunny, and it's warming up into early next week. Inland, notice, same situation here. We'll see the sunshine as we work our way toward the latter half of the weekend into early next week. Mountainous locations, a snowy start for Saturday. And then over the desert, notice we're talking about some cool air Saturday into Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povic. Back to you, Ebony.
Southern California Edison has engaged a panel of experts to advise the company on how to move nuclear waste off the beach at San Onofre. KPBS reporter Allison St. John says it's part of a settlement reached after a court challenge of the permit to bury the waste 100 feet from the ocean.
Edison committed to spending $4 million to hire a panel of experts to help it find a solution to the question of what to do with hundreds of spent nuclear fuel rods. The nuclear waste is currently being transferred into partially buried storage near the beach at San Onofre. The panel includes a former chair of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Alison McFarlane, and 5 other nationally recognized experts in the field of nuclear waste disposal. Attorney Mike Aguirre was one of the plaintiffs who reached a settlement that required Edison to convene the panel.
This is now the first step in getting Southern Cal Edison with these experts and with the community to working in a very positive way to get this waste relocated, whether it relocates to Palo Verde or it relocates to New Mexico. Those are our best 2 shots. I think that this is the group that can make it happen.
Palo Verde is a nuclear plant in Arizona where Edison is part owner. 2 private companies have applied for licenses from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to build nuclear waste storage in New Mexico and Texas, but federal law currently does not allow that. Critics call the agreement toothless and say it contains no legal requirement for Edison to actually move the waste. In the North County Bureau, I'm Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Silicon Valley is home to some of the world's most innovative companies. But the new book, Brotopia, shows Silicon Valley is also a place where gender inequality and the mistreatment of women run rampant. KQED Newsroom, Thuy Vu talks to the author, Emily Chang, about the stark gender gap in the tech industry.
Joining me now is author of Brotopia, Breaking Up the Boys Club of Silicon Valley, Emily Chang. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Thuy, for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, how stark is the gender gap in the tech industry?
So
Just look at the numbers. I mean, women account for 25% of jobs across the computing industry, 7% of venture capital investors. These are the people who decide what gets to be the next Facebook. And women-led companies get just 2% of venture capital funding. So not only are they underrepresented, they're just not getting the money that they need to start these potentially world-changing businesses.
But it wasn't always this way. I mean, in your book, you talk about women who played a formative role in the computer industry, women like Ada Lovelace, women like Grace Hopper. Tell us about them.
In the 1940s and 1950s, this is what surprised me the most when I started doing my research. Women played vital roles in the computing industry. They were programming computers for the military, programming computers for NASA. And then in the 60s and 70s, as the industry was exploding, they were desperate for new talent. And so a software company hired 2 psychologists to develop a personality test to identify good programmers. And what they decided is that good programmers, quote, don't like people. Well, if you look for people who don't like people, you'll hire far more men than women. That's what the research tells us. And there's no research to support this idea that people who don't like people are better at this job than people who do, or that men are better at this job than women. But it has perpetuated this idea of the antisocial, mostly white, male nerd stereotype that persists to this day.
And so that's why companies, you think, keep on hiring that people who fit that stereotype.
So that test, for example, was used for decades by companies as big as IBM. And that stereotype came to sort of permeate not just the industry, but computer labs and parents and families. And then it was repeated in popular culture. A lot of people told me, well, this stereotype was created by TV and movies. In fact, it wasn't. The tech industry created that stereotype. And it has perpetuated this idea that a very narrow group of people are good at this, when in fact we need people of all backgrounds making these products because billions and billions of people are using them, men and women.
And in your book, you also cite another example of power imbalance by talking about the sex parties that happen in Silicon Valley. What happens at these gatherings?
In Silicon Valley, work and personal lives are very intertwined, and a lot of business happens outside the office. So whether it is at the bar or the hotel lobby or sometimes even in the hot tub, I talk about an investor who has hot tub parties at his house. And these sex parties that you mentioned, the Bay Area has long had a tradition of sort of sexual exploration and sexual liberation. And so there's a wide spectrum of social behavior that you see. And in many ways, these parties are a lot more about power than they are about sex, and it's a power dynamic that is completely lopsided.
But I guess some people might argue, well, these women are coming to these parties to have a good time, and what is wrong with that?
I spoke to over 36 people now, and several who've actually come forward to me since I wrote the book, men and women. The men describe a situation where they're challenging social mores and challenging traditional morality, where the women sort of feel like this is where powerful people are, but they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they do attend these parties, they're disrespected or discredited. They may never see an investment. But if they don't attend, they're locked out. They're shut out of these important social gatherings. And, some of the women I spoke to actually felt that they had to leave Silicon Valley in order to, just do business on a level playing field, and they decided to continue their businesses in New York.
Researchers are testing fluorescent dyes that could give cancer patients a better shot at survival after surgery.
He had a very large tumor.
When Dr. Sunil Singhal saw images of the tumor near Ryan Sikosi's heart, he knew they had to act quickly.
It was almost 4 or 5 inches. So just to give you a sense, it's the size of your 2 fists put together. Not real.
Surgery has long been the best way to cure cancer. If the disease comes back, it's usually because stray tumor cells were left behind. But doctors have no good way during an operation to tell what is cancer and what is not. Now they are testing dyes to make cancer cells glow to help surgeons see what to remove.
Whatever is glowing needs to come out now.
Singhal was inspired by the idea of glowing tumors about a decade ago. He found that when one dye was given in big doses by IV a day before surgery, it collected in cancer cells and glowed when exposed to near-infrared light.
So now with the laser being on, you can really begin to see the difference. So this part is cancer and this is not.
As Singal operates on Sukosi, something unexpected shows up that didn't appear in scans ahead of time.
The cancer's grown into the lung, so we're going to take a piece of the lung out too.
The dyes are still experimental, but several are in late-stage testing. The federal government is helping sponsor some of the research. Paula Jacobs, an imaging specialist at the National Cancer Institute, thinks that dyes can dramatically improve patient care by helping to remove all of the cancer while sparing healthy tissue.
Some cancers, it's very much more important than others to not take any more than you have to.
Some experts think dyes may hold the most promise for breast cancer. Up to 1/3 of women having a lump removed end up having a second surgery after tests later show that some cancer was left behind.
This is a problem. It's not only expensive, it's debilitating, it's upsetting, it's all of these things. And, patient has to undergo yet another surgery, sometimes even more than one.
Singal believes using the dyes in this technique could give patients a better chance of survival.
Now it's almost like we have bionic vision and we can start to scan the area, making sure that we've removed everything.
Giving doctors a new way to hunt for hidden cancers. Kathy Young, Associated Press.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.